Aging with grace begins in how we choose to show up. It's something many older adults find themselves doing without even noticing: dominating conversations, sharing stories from the past, offering advice, or jumping in with personal experiences during a chat. After all, a lifetime of memories and lessons feels too important not to pass on. And truthfully, it's natural. We all want to feel heard, to offer wisdom, to stay relevant. This habit doesn't come from a bad place, it's just an easy one to fall into. But when it becomes the norm, it can leave others feeling silenced, especially the younger people in our lives. Think of a family dinner where a teenager begins to talk about school or a friend, and before they finish, a story from 30 years ago takes center stage. Have you ever noticed the subtle pause in their voice or the way their gaze drops? It's not that your story wasn't valuable, but maybe they were looking for connection, not a comparison. When we don't make space for others, the people we love may pull away. And over time, we risk becoming present in body, but absent from true dialogue. So how can we shift this? Start simple. The next time you're in a conversation, try pausing after you speak, then ask, "What about you?" Or "How did that feel for you?" Give others the floor and really listen. Not to reply, not to teach, but to understand. You'll be surprised how much richness that brings. Because aging with grace isn't about saying more. It's about making space. And often, the most lasting wisdom isn't what we say, it's the respect we show when we choose to listen. 1. The quiet power of listening as we grow older. It's not uncommon for older adults to find themselves steering conversations without even realizing it. After decades of experiences, stories, and hard-earned lessons, it's only natural to feel that what we have to say matters, and it does. Many of us carry rich memories, turning points from our careers, or family moments that shaped who we are. Wanting to share them is human. But over time, if we find ourselves doing most of the talking, even with good intentions, we may unintentionally take up all the space. This isn't about blame, it's about recognizing how easy it is to fall into the habit of speaking more than listening, especially when we feel the need to stay relevant or understood. Imagine sitting around the table with your children or grandchildren, and they start talking about something new, maybe a challenge they're facing at work, or something they're passionate about. Before long, we might jump in with a similar story from back in our day, thinking it will help. But have you ever noticed their expression change, or their tone quiet a bit? It's not because your story didn't matter, it's because they might have just wanted to be heard in that moment. When we constantly redirect conversations back to our experiences, we risk creating distance where connection is needed most. We don't mean to overshadow others, but it can happen more often than we think. And the result? People begin to feel unheard, and slowly, they may stop opening up. There's a simple, practical shift that can change everything. Create space. When you're in a conversation, especially with younger people, try pausing before you respond. Ask yourself, am I listening to understand, or just waiting to speak? After you share a thought or a story, try following it up with an open invitation like, "What do you think?" Or "Has anything like that happened to you?" These small gestures make a big difference. They let others know their voice matters just as much as yours. If you catch yourself dominating a conversation, that's not failure, it's awareness. And awareness is the first step toward change. As we grow older, our words carry weight, but so does our silence when it's filled with genuine attention. Listening isn't passive. It's active, generous, and deeply respectful. It tells people, "I see you, I value what you're saying." And in many cases, those moments of quiet presence say more than any story ever could. Aging gracefully isn't about fading into the background, it's about showing up in ways that invite others in. When we learn to truly listen, we don't lose our voice to amplify connection. While talking too much can make others feel unheard, constantly boasting can make them feel unseen. 2. When pride becomes a wall, not a bridge. It's natural to feel proud of what we've accomplished in life or careers, the families we've raised, the challenges we've overcome. And as we get older, these achievements can feel like anchors to our identity, reminders of the lives we've built. But sometimes, without meaning to, that pride turns into something else. We start talking about our children's promotions, our financial stability, or decades of experience so often that it stops being sharing and starts sounding like bragging. It's easy to slip into this habit. It doesn't mean we're arrogant or trying to compete. Most of the time, it comes from a simple place, wanting to feel seen and valued. Picture sitting with a friend at a cafe. Maybe their children are struggling to find their path, or they're going through financial stress. You, on the other hand, feel fortunate that your kids are thriving and retirement is comfortable. So you share how proud you are. You talk about your daughter's new home, your grandson's scholarship, your investments doing well. But somewhere in the middle of that conversation, your friend grows quiet. Have you ever walked away from a conversation wondering if maybe you said too much? We rarely intend to make others feel small, but repeated boasting can feel like distance, not connection. It can unintentionally reinforce someone else's pain or insecurities, and in the long run, it may leave us isolated, respected for our resume, but not remembered for our warmth. What can help is a shift from pride to perspective. Instead of highlighting outcomes, try focusing on the journey, what you learned along the way, the patience it took, or the humility that followed. If you find yourself about to highlight your success, pause and ask, what's the deeper value behind this story? Try framing it as a moment of learning rather than a personal victory. For example, instead of saying, my son just bought his third house, you might say, raising him taught me a lot about letting go and trusting the process. This kind of reflection invites connection. It says, here's something I lived through, and here's what it gave me. It opens the door for others to share their stories too, regardless of the outcome. In the end, true connection doesn't come from showing how well we've done, it comes from showing who we've become. When we lead with humility rather than credentials, we create room for trust, empathy, and real conversation. Because the things that matter most aren't always the loudest in the room, they are the ones that make others feel safe, seen, and accepted. And just as pride can create distance, quick judgments can close doors before they even open. 3. Looking beyond first impressions. As we grow older, it's natural to feel like we've seen enough to know people quickly. We might find ourselves sizing someone up within moments based on how they dress, how they speak, what they believe. It's not about being unkind. Often, it comes from years of experience that help us navigate the world more efficiently. But over time, this habit of snap judgment can become a quiet barrier between us and others. It's easy to forget that first impressions, while sometimes helpful, are rarely the full story. And the truth is, all of us have done it. We meet someone new, and without meaning to, we put them in a mental box. It's a very human tendency, but one that deserves a second look. Think about the last time someone misunderstood you because of how you looked, or a single comment you made. Maybe they assumed you were too old to get it, or stuck in your ways, without ever really asking who you are. How did that feel? Now flip the script. What if you've done the same to someone younger, maybe judged them as careless, entitled, or out of touch without truly listening? These small assumptions add up. They limit our relationships and close doors that might have led to meaningful connection. And often, we don't even realize we're doing it until someone points it out or walks away. Over time, these patterns can create emotional distance from our community, our family, even ourselves. There's a simple way to open that door again: curiosity. The next time you meet someone new, pause before forming a conclusion. Instead of thinking, they're probably this kind of person, try asking, what might I not know yet? In conversations, lead with open-ended questions like, what's been on your mind lately? Or what's something important to you right now? These questions invite deeper dialogue. They show that you're interested not in judging, but in understanding. And if you notice judgment creeping in, gently remind yourself that everyone has layers we can't see at first glance. The more we ask, the more we learn, and the more we allow others to feel safe being themselves. True wisdom is less about having all the answers and more about being willing to learn again. Even when we think we know, every person we meet carries a story that could surprise us, teach us, move us. When we choose to listen instead of assume, we not only discover others more fully, we discover parts of ourselves too. In a world that often rushes to label, taking time to understand is a quiet act of respect and a powerful form of love. Once we stop seeing others clearly, it's easy to stop seeing ourselves with care, too. 4. The quiet message of self-respect. As people grow older, it's not unusual for them to start caring less about their personal appearance. After all, haven't we earned the right to relax a little? Prioritizing comfort, letting go of fashion trends, skipping a trip to the barber or the store, these things feel like small freedoms. And truly, no one should feel pressured to look a certain way. But there's a quiet shift that can happen when we start neglecting how we present ourselves, not out of self-acceptance, but from disconnection. It's something many older adults go through, often without realizing, the slow fading of self-care. And it's completely understandable. Life changes, energy shifts, but this habit, while common, can take a toll on how we feel about ourselves and how others engage with us. Imagine bumping into an old friend you haven't seen in years. You remember them as vibrant, proud of their style, full of warmth. Now, they seem withdrawn, their clothes worn, hair unkempt, shoulders a bit slouched. What would go through your mind? Would you wonder if something's wrong? It's not about appearances for vanity's sake. It's about what our presence communicates. How we show up often reflects how we feel inside. When we stop caring about our appearance altogether, it can be a signal not just to others, but to ourselves that we've started to disconnect. And that disconnection, over time, can impact confidence, social interactions, and even mental health. So the real question is, are we choosing comfort, or are we giving up on expressing who we are? There's a gentle way to shift this pattern, no need for anything dramatic or costly. Start with one small change. Maybe it's getting a fresh haircut, or pulling out that shirt that makes you feel just a little more like yourself. Set a goal to get dressed each morning in something clean, comfortable, and put together, even if you're not going anywhere. If grooming has felt like a chore, make it a routine again, something to do not out of pressure, but out of care. You're not dressing up for others, you're showing up for yourself. And in doing so, you're sending a message: I still matter, I'm still here. These little acts of attention have a ripple effect. They lift your energy, they change how people respond to you, they restore a quiet sense of dignity. In the end, self-care isn't about looking young, it's about honoring yourself at every stage of life. When we continue to take care of how we present ourselves, we affirm that aging doesn't mean disappearing. It means showing up fully, with pride, presence, and quiet strength. And when we stop showing up for ourselves, we may begin expecting others to show up for you automatically. 5. Earning respect through connection, not expectation. It's common for older adults to feel frustrated when they sense that respect isn't as freely given as it used to be. After years of life experience, hard work, and sacrifice, it can feel only fair to expect others, especially younger generations, to treat us with deference. But in today's culture, respect isn't always automatic. It's not because younger people are rude or careless. It's because society has shifted toward valuing authenticity, mutual understanding, and earned connection. Feeling unseen or dismissed can be painful, and it's easy to assume it's because of age. But sometimes, this expectation of respect, without building a relationship first, can quietly push others away, even when we mean well. Think about a moment when you shared your opinion in a conversation with a younger person and were met with disagreement or disinterest. Maybe you thought, they wouldn't be that way if they understood everything I've been through. And that may be true, but ask yourself, did they get a chance to understand you? Or were they simply expected to defer? Imagine walking into a room and assuming your voice should carry more weight just because of your age. How would that feel if the roles were reversed? When we expect respect as a given, rather than as something mutual, we risk creating distance, especially with younger people who are still finding their voice. The truth is, no matter how old we get, the foundation of respect is still built on how we show up in relationships, with kindness, openness, and humility. So how do we build bridges instead of walls? It begins with small, intentional shifts. When engaging with younger people, your kids, grandkids, co-workers, or neighbors, starting from a place of curiosity instead of authority. Ask them how they see things. Really listen, without jumping in to correct or compare. And when you offer your perspective, Try framing it as something to consider rather than something that must be accepted. For example, saying, "Here's something I've learned that might be helpful," can open more hearts than, "Back in my day, we did it better." Simple phrases like, "That's an interesting point, tell me more," show that respect goes both ways. And the more you model that, the more likely you are to receive it in return. At its heart, respect is about connection. It's not about status, age, or history, it's about presence. When we meet others with humility and generosity of spirit, we invite them to meet us with the same. And in that space, something beautiful happens. Instead of demanding respect, we inspire it. Because in the end, the most respected people are the ones who make others feel respected, too. But true respect doesn't grow where resentment still lives. It needs space and healing to take root. 6. Letting go to move forward. As the years go by, it becomes easier to hold on to the pain we've experienced, old arguments, betrayals, misunderstandings that were never resolved. Many older adults carry emotional weight from the past, not because they want to, but because it feels unfinished or maybe unforgivable. The truth is, most of us struggle with letting go. It doesn't mean we're bitter or unkind, it just means we've been hurt. Holding a grudge can feel like protecting ourselves, like keeping control over what we've been through. But over time, that protection can quietly turn into a prison, and it's something more common than we like to admit. Imagine a holiday gathering where everyone is laughing and catching up, but the people in the room haven't spoken in years. Maybe it's a sibling who said something hurtful, or a friend who disappeared during a difficult time. You sit across the table from them, still remembering what they did or didn't do, but they've moved on or they think you have. Meanwhile, you're carrying the weight alone. Have you ever asked yourself what holding on has really given you? Does it offer peace or just a quiet sense of distance and exhaustion? Sometimes we believe that forgiving someone means saying what happened was okay. But forgiveness isn't about excusing behavior, it's about choosing your own freedom over staying stuck in old pain. A gentle way forward is to begin with acknowledgement, not for anyone else, just for yourself. Write down what happened, how it made you feel, and what it's cost you emotionally over the years. You don't have to send it, you just have to be honest. From there, ask yourself, is this still serving me, or is it holding me back? If the pain has become part of your identity, it may be time to let a piece of it go, not for the other person's sake, but for your own. You can practice this in everyday ways. When someone brings up a person you've been at odds with, instead of retelling the same story, simply say, "That's in the past. I'm working on peace." That shift, small as it is, plants the seed of healing, and it tells the world and yourself that you're no longer chained to the hurt. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without reliving. It means choosing today over yesterday, and choosing lightness over weight. When we release what no longer serves us, we make space for new memories, for deeper joy, for emotional rest. Forgiveness isn't a sign of weakness. It's one of the strongest, kindest things we can do for ourselves as we grow older. Because healing is not about changing the past, it's about reclaiming your peace in the present. And when we carry old pain too long, we often start resisting anything new that asks us to grow. 7. Staying open in a changing world. It's completely understandable that, as we grow older, we become more attached to the routines, beliefs, and ways of life we've built over decades. Change, whether it's technology, social norms, or even how younger people communicate, can feel unfamiliar and overwhelming. Many older adults find themselves thinking things were better when they were simpler. And sometimes that's true, but resistance to change isn't just about nostalgia. It can slowly disconnect us from the world around us. This isn't a fault or a failure. It's human nature. When you've invested so much into how life works, it's only natural to want to protect it. But holding too tightly can quietly close the door to new experiences and relationships. Think of a moment when someone showed you a new app or suggested a different way of doing something you've done for years. Maybe you brushed it off or said, "That's not for me." But what if that new thing wasn't just a tool, it was a bridge? A way to stay in touch with your grandkids, keep your mind active, or join a conversation that matters to someone you love. Now imagine the flip side. You continue saying no to those changes, What starts as a simple refusal can become isolation over time. Have you ever felt left out of a group conversation or unsure how to participate in something because it all felt too new or too fast? Change doesn't stop, it keeps moving. And when we stop moving with it, we risk shrinking our world without even noticing. The good news is, adapting doesn't have to mean changing who you are. It simply means staying curious. You can start small. Ask someone you trust to walk you through a new tool, like how to use video calling or explore online articles that interest you. If something feels unfamiliar, instead of saying, "That's not for me," try saying, "I'm open to trying." Even one new habit like listening to a podcast or joining a local community event you've never attended can open new doors. If it helps, write down one thing each week you're willing to explore, no matter how small. And remember, adapting is not about keeping up with trends. It's about staying connected to life, to others, and to yourself. True resilience isn't about staying the same. It's about staying engaged. When we meet change with openness instead of fear, we invite growth, energy, and relevance into our lives at any age. Adapting isn't a sign of giving in. It's a sign of staying alive to the possibilities still ahead. Yet to truly adapt, we must also be willing to feel and let others feel with us. 8. The strength in being open. As we grow older, it can feel safer to keep our emotions tucked away. Maybe we've been hurt before, or maybe we were raised in a time when vulnerability was seen as weakness. Over the years, many older adults develop a habit of emotional self-protection, of staying on the surface, keeping conversations light, avoiding deeper truths. It's not because we don't care. On the contrary, it often comes from caring too much, from not wanting to burden others, or from fearing rejection. But in protecting ourselves, we sometimes block out the very thing we need most: connection. Imagine talking with a close friend or even a family member. You share the news of a health scare, a recent loss, or even a fear about the future, but only halfway. You say, "I'm fine," or quickly change the subject. Have you ever noticed how that moment passes without real comfort? Or how you leave feeling just as alone as before? Now flip the situation. A loved one tells you something hard. Maybe they're struggling. Maybe they're afraid, and you respond with presence, not solutions. How powerful is that moment? Vulnerability, when welcomed, builds trust, but when it's avoided, it creates distance. Over time, this emotional gap can grow, leaving even close relationships feeling shallow or performative. The first step in shifting this is small, but meaningful. Choose honesty in moments that matter. The next time someone you trust asks how you're doing, resist the urge to deflect. Say something true, even if it's simple. "I've been feeling a little lonely lately," or "I've had something on my mind." Emotional openness doesn't mean spilling everything. It means allowing others to meet you where you really are. And when they do, ask in return, "How are you really?" Practice listening, not to fix, but to understand. Over time, these small exchanges build deeper connection. They tell people you trust them, and they allow you to be seen as just as wise or resilient, but as human. Being emotionally open isn't a weakness. It's a sign of strength and emotional maturity. It means you're still growing, still connecting, still brave enough to be real. And that kind of honesty makes room for others to open up too. When we show up with vulnerability, we give permission for others to do the same. That's where the richest relationships live, not in perfection, but in presence. True connection doesn't require grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with a quiet sentence, spoken from the heart. And while staying guarded can protect us from pain, clinging to the past can keep us from joy. 9. Living now, not just then. It's completely natural to look back on the past with affection. Many older adults find themselves reminiscing about earlier years, times when life felt more certain, more vibrant, more full of possibility. There's comfort in memory. After all, the past holds stories we've lived through, lessons we've learned, and people we've loved. But sometimes, without realizing it, we can become too anchored in what was. We find ourselves saying things like, "Those were the good old days," more often than we notice the good in today. This habit isn't something to feel guilty about, it's human. But when our hearts live too much in the past, it can start to pull us away from the richness of the life still unfolding around us. Picture sitting with your grandchildren, and instead of asking about their world, you drift into stories of how things used to be. Or maybe you scroll through old photos often, feeling a bittersweet ache that today just doesn't measure up. Have you ever noticed how this kind of nostalgia can feel both warm and lonely at the same time? It's like visiting a home you can't return to. And while memories matter, constantly comparing the present to the past can quietly rob us of the joys still available. If we hold too tightly to what was, we may miss the new relationships, adventures, and discoveries still waiting for us now. The world changes, and so do we. But that doesn't mean we've lost value, it just means life keeps moving. And we have the chance to move with it. To reconnect with the present, start with presence. Find one small thing in your day that brings quiet joy, a walk in fresh air, a song that moves you, or a conversation with someone you care about. Practice paying attention to those moments as if they matter, because they do. You might try keeping a simple journal of things that made you smile today, or set an intention each morning to say yes to one new experience, however small. If your thoughts drift too often to how it used to be, gently remind yourself that life is still happening and you're still part of it. Engage with what's around you. Ask questions. Try something unfamiliar. Being present doesn't mean forgetting your past. It means not letting it define your whole story. The past made you who you are, but it's not the only place where meaning lives. When we learn to honor our memories without being ruled by them, we gain something powerful, the ability to keep growing, keep connecting, and keep living fully. Each day you wake up is still a page in your story. You don't have to chase youth to stay alive inside. You just have to show up open to what's here now. Because in the end, aging gracefully isn't about holding on, it's about leaning into what's still possible. Choosing growth over habit. As we age, it's easy to fall into habits that feel safe but slowly close us off from others, from ourselves, from the present moment. Whether it's holding on to past hurts, speaking more than we listen, resisting change, or expecting respect without earning it. These patterns aren't signs of failure, they are signs of being human. We all do them in different ways, but left unchecked, they can shrink our world and isolate us from what matters most. Think about a conversation where you felt unheard, or a moment when someone's story made you feel small. Now imagine that someone else might feel that way when they're with you. It's not about blame, it's about awareness. These moments invite us to ask, am I building connection, or am I just repeating a habit? If we're not careful, the very wisdom we've earned can become a wall instead of a bridge. So how do we shift? Start with one behavior. Choose to pause and listen more. Practice forgiveness, not for others, but to lighten your own heart. Say yes to something new, even if it feels unfamiliar. Let the people around you see not just who you were, but who you still remained, who you're becoming. Because growing older doesn't mean growing smaller. It means deepening. And grace doesn't come from age alone, it comes from the choice to stay open, kind, and curious. The beauty of this stage of life is that we get to decide, every day, how we want to show up.